In 2019, Laura Wilson seemed to have it all. A thriving YouTube channel, a loving family, a farm that millions watched grow from nothing. But behind the perfectly edited videos and cheerful thumbnails, something was breaking. Within just 4 years, her world would collapse in ways her viewers never saw coming. And the darkest part? The signs were there the whole time, hidden in plain sight. What started as a dream would end in a tragedy that shocked everyone who thought they knew her story. Laura Wilson wasn't supposed to be famous. She was a mother of 4 living on a small farm in rural America, doing what millions of other families do every single day. But in 2015, something changed. She decided to film her life. Not for money, not for attention, just to share what she loved with people who might be interested. She started uploading videos of her children playing in the fields, of her hands in the soil, of simple moments that felt real and honest. The internet responded instantly. Within months, her channel exploded. Hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Then millions. People were hungry for something authentic, something that felt like home. Laura's videos were different from the polished, corporate family channels. Her kids laughed naturally. Her farm looked lived in. Her struggles seemed genuine. She wasn't selling a fantasy. She was sharing a life, and the world wanted to watch. By 2017, Laura Family Farms had become a phenomenon. Brands wanted partnerships. Production companies circled. The algorithm favored her content because viewers kept coming back. Each video would get millions of views. Comments poured in from around the world. People said things like, "This is what I needed to see today. Your family makes me believe in goodness again. Thank you for showing us the real thing." But here's what nobody understood yet. Success had a price nobody was prepared to pay. Laura went from filming her life on her own terms to living for the camera. The pressure wasn't obvious at first. It was subtle, gradual. A missed upload meant hundreds of disappointed comments. A video that underperformed created panic. Sponsors expected consistency. Viewers demanded new content. The farm that was supposed to be her family's private sanctuary became a set. Every moment had to be filmed. Every emotion had to be relatable. Every day had to be content. She was caught between 2 impossible demands. Be authentic, but also be entertaining. Show your real struggles, but make sure they're not too dark. Be a role model, but stay relatable. The tighter the rope became, the more Laura smiled for the camera. If you watched Laura Family Farms in 2017 and 2018, you saw a woman who seemed to have figured out the secret. She had a beautiful family, a working farm, financial stability, and most importantly, she seemed happy. Genuinely, authentically happy. Her thumbnails showed her laughing. Her intros were warm. She talked about her children with obvious love. Millions of people watched her and thought, "She's got it figured out. This is the dream." What they didn't see was the cost of maintaining that image. Behind every edited video was hours of footage. Moments that didn't make the cut. Takes that were redone because the lighting wasn't right or the children weren't in the mood. Laura was a perfectionist, and perfection requires sacrifice. She would wake up early to film before the children went to school. She would stay up late editing. She was working 18-hour days, 7 days a week, to maintain an audience that was growing faster than she could keep up with. Her marriage, which appeared rock solid in the videos, was showing stress. The farm required constant work. The children needed attention. And now, the channel demanded everything. Her husband supported the venture financially, but the emotional labor fell entirely on Laura. She was the face. She was the voice. She was the one who had to be on all the time. People close to her began noticing small things. Laura seemed tired in person, but energized on camera. She would complain about exhaustion, then immediately worry about whether that complaint would disappoint her audience. She had internalized the idea that her worth was connected to her output. No videos meant no validation. No engagement meant failure. But the real problem was something deeper. Laura had built her entire identity around being the woman in those videos. Without the channel, who was she? Just a tired mother on a farm? That wasn't interesting. That wasn't inspiring. That wasn't the person millions of people had fallen in love with. The pressure to stay interesting, to stay relevant, to stay perfecto was suffocating her. And then came 2019, the year everything would begin to unravel, though nobody watching could see it yet. By 2019, Laura Family Farms had crossed into a different tier of success. The channel wasn't just popular in Amoria Euro, it was an industry. Major brands were paying for sponsorships. Production quality increased. The farm expanded. They hired help. Everything looked like growth. Everything looked like winning. But success at that scale creates a trap that most people don't understand until it's too late. The algorithm had changed. What worked in 2017 didn't work anymore. To maintain the same level of views, Laura had to post more frequently. More content meant more pressure. More pressure meant less time for actual farming, actual parenting, actual living. She was running on a hamster wheel that kept spinning faster, and the only way off was to disappoint millions of people who had come to depend on her consistency. She started talking about burnout in her videos, casually, like it was a relatable struggle that everyone could understand. "I'm so tired," she would say, laughing it off. Her audience responded with sympathy, but also with expectation. They wanted to see her push through. They wanted to see her overcome. Struggle was content. Vulnerability was engagement. So Laura learned to perform her exhaustion rather than actually address it. Her mental health was deteriorating, but she kept it hidden. Friends and family members said she seemed different, distant, anxious. She was experiencing panic attacks, but filming through them. She was crying alone in the barn, then walking out to film a cheerful video about the day's harvest. The disconnect between her internal reality and her external persona was growing into a chasm. The children were affected too, though Laura tried to shield them from the pressure. They could sense their mother's stress. They knew the camera was more important than spontaneous playtime. They understood, on some level, that children shouldn't have to understand that their lives were being monetized. Some of them began to resent the channel. Others became performative themselves, learning to turn it on when the camera came out. Laura started making excuses for missed uploads. Health issues, technical problems, family emergencies. Each excuse was met with disappointment from her audience. And each disappointment added another layer of guilt. She wasn't just letting herself down. She was failing millions of people who believed in her. By late 2019, Laura was running on empty. She was trapped between the person she had become and the person she wanted to be. The channel that was supposed to be her dream had become her prison. In late 2019, Laura made a decision that shocked her audience. She announced a hiatus, not a temporary break, a real, indefinite step back from the channel. Her statement was vague, but honest in a way her recent content hadn't been. She talked about needing time to focus on her mental health, about prioritizing her family, about recognizing that she had lost herself in the pursuit of content. For the first time in years, Laura stepped away from the camera. What happened next revealed just how dependent she had become on the validation the channel provided. Without the comments, without the views, without the constant feedback loop of engagement, Laura felt invisible, worthless. She had spent so long being Laura Wilson from Laura Family Farms that she didn't know how to be just Laura anymore. The hiatus, which was supposed to be healing, became its own kind of torture. But the pressure didn't stop. Sponsors wanted to know when she would return. The algorithm moved on without her, recommending other family channels to her former viewers. Younger, fresher creators were taking her place. She watched her relevance slip away in real time. And as her numbers declined, her anxiety increased. She started receiving messages from viewers who said her absence was disappointing them, that they missed her, that they had become dependent on her content too. Some messages were kind. Others were demanding. A few were cruel, suggesting that she was selfish for abandoning her audience. The guilt multiplied. She had created an audience that needed her, and now she was failing them by trying to save herself. After about 3 months, Laura made another announcement. She was coming back, but this time would be different, she promised. She would be more intentional, more balanced, more honest about her struggles. Her return video was tearful and vulnerable. She talked about her mental health journey, about therapy, about learning to set boundaries, about putting her family first. Her audience celebrated her return like she had survived a catastrophe. In some ways, she had. But what nobody realized was that coming back didn't fix anything. It just reset the cycle. Within weeks, she was posting regularly again. Within months, the pressure had crept back in. The difference was that now she was even more aware of how unsustainable her life had become. She was trapped in a pattern she couldn't break, and the cracks were getting wider. Between 2020 and 2021, Laura's mental state deteriorated in ways that only the people closest to her could see. She was still posting videos, still smiling, still performing, but the woman behind the camera was unraveling. Her family noticed it first. Her husband described her as present but absent. She would be in the room with her children, but mentally somewhere else, worrying about analytics, stressing about sponsors, anxious about comments. She had developed insomnia. She would lie awake at night, scrolling through comments, reading criticism, obsessing over engagement metrics. Some nights, she wouldn't sleep at all. She would just lie there, her mind racing, thinking about everything she had to film the next day. Her children were struggling too. One of her sons told a school counselor that his mom was always on her phone. Another child expressed anxiety about being filmed. The youngest would hide from the camera, which created a new problem. Laura had to chase her down, convince her to participate, because viewers expected to see all 4 children in every video. The farm, which was supposed to be a sanctuary, had become a workplace that nobody in the family could escape. Laura's parents became increasingly concerned. During a visit home, they found her crying in her car after a video shoot had gone wrong. She wasn't upset about the video itself. She was devastated because she had snapped at one of her children on camera, and she knew that thousands of people would judge her parenting based on that one moment. She had internalized the idea that her every action was being evaluated by millions of strangers. She started seeing a therapist, which was positive, but therapy created its own pressure. The therapist recommended she reduce her posting schedule, spend more time with family, disconnect from social media. Laura tried. She really did. But every day she didn't post, she felt the anxiety building. What if her audience forgot about her? What if another creator filled the void? What if she lost everything she had built? By early 2021, Laura was exhibiting signs of serious depression. She was gaining weight from stress eating. Her skin was breaking out. She had developed a nervous habit of pulling at her hair. She talked about feeling empty, even when she was surrounded by people who loved her. She described her life as feeling like she was playing a character all the time, and she couldn't remember what the real her looked like anymore. The pressure had stopped being external. It had become internal. She was now her own worst critic, her own harshest judge. Every moment felt like it needed to be perfect. Every decision felt like it could destroy her carefully constructed world. Her breaking point was coming, and nobody could stop it. On a day that started like any other, something shifted. Laura woke up and couldn't get out of bed. Not because she was physically ill, but because the weight of everything the pressure, the exhaustion, the impossible expectations, the loss of self had finally become too much to carry. Her husband found her around noon, still in bed, staring at the ceiling. She wasn't crying. She wasn't dramatic about it. She was just gone, present in body but absent in every other way. When he asked her what was wrong, she couldn't articulate it. There were no words big enough for what she was feeling. That day, no video was posted. The comments started immediately. Concerned messages mixed with demands. "Are you okay?" Mixed with "Where's the video?" Within hours, Laura's anxiety spiked in a territory she had never experienced before. A full-blown panic attack. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think clearly. Her heart was racing. She was convinced something terrible was happening to her body, that she was dying. Her husband drove her to the emergency room. The doctors ran tests. Everything came back normal. It wasn't a heart attack. It wasn't a stroke. It was a panic attack severe enough that it had convinced her she was in mortal danger. The ER doctor pulled her aside and asked point-blank, "What is causing you this much stress?" Laura couldn't answer. Or rather, she couldn't answer without acknowledging the truth. The thing that was supposed to save her Lifia her channel, her audience, her Purposia had become the thing that was destroying her. In the following days, Laura made a decision that would have massive consequences. She didn't just take another break. She announced that she was stepping away from the channel indefinitely. Not temporarily. Permanently. She was done. She couldn't do it anymore. The video she posted was raw and honest in a way her audience had never seen. She talked about depression, about feeling trapped, about realizing that the life she was performing online was killing the real person she was supposed to be. The response was immediate and mixed. Some viewers were supportive and understanding. They thanked her for being honest. They said she deserved to take care of herself. But others were angry. How dare she abandon them? How dare she build an audience and then leave? Some suggested she was being ungrateful. Others accused her of being selfish. The cruelty added another layer of trauma to what she was already experiencing. Laura had poured her heart into those videos for years. And now, when she was at her most vulnerable, asking for compassion, a significant portion of her audience attacked her. She deleted social media from her phone. She stopped reading comments. She tried to disappear. But the damage had already been done. In the months following Laura's announcement, the internet did what the internet does. It moved on. New creators emerged. Other family channels filled the void. Laura Family Farms became a ghost channel, a Euro still there, still getting views from old videos, but no longer part of the current conversation. For most of her former audience, she had simply ceased to exist. But for Laura, the aftermath was far from over. What people didn't see was what happened in the silence. Away from the camera, Laura was struggling in ways that went beyond burnout. She was dealing with the psychological aftermath of having built her entire identity around an audience that had now rejected her. She had defined her worth based on metrics Euro views, likes, comments Euro, and now those metrics were gone. Without them, she felt worthless. She experienced what mental health professionals call identity dissolution. She didn't know who she was anymore. The person in the videos felt fake. But the person underneath also felt fake because she had spent so long performing that she had forgotten how to be authentic. She was caught in a void between two identities, belonging fully to neither. Her relationships were strained. Her marriage, which had been tested by years of the channel's demands, was now being tested by her withdrawal from it. Her husband tried to be supportive, but he didn't fully understand depression. He wanted to fix it, to problem solve it, to move forward. But Laura was stuck in a spiral of self-blame and regret. She obsessed over every decision she had ever made on the channel. Why did she post that video? Why did she let her children participate? Why didn't she see the warning signs earlier? Why didn't she stop when she had the chance? The guilt was consuming her. She felt responsible for damaging her children's privacy, for exposing them to the internet, for making them part of a machine that was designed to exploit vulnerability for engagement. Her children were processing their own trauma. One of them started acting out in school. Another became withdrawn and anxious. They had spent their entire childhoods being filmed, being watched, being judged by strangers online. And now their mother was gone, emotionally unavailable, dealing with her own mental health crisis. The family that had seemed so picture-perfect on video was fractured and hurting. Laura tried therapy again. She tried medication. She tried to rebuild her sense of self without the channel. But every attempt felt hollow. The damage had cut deeper than she had realized. And the cruelest part was that she was suffering in complete silence. Nobody knew. Nobody was checking on her. To the world, she was just another creator who burned out and disappeared. What happened next would change everything. In early 2022, nearly a year after Laura's disappearance from public view, a disturbing discovery began circulating online. Former viewers and digital archivists had been re-examining old videos from Laura Family Farms, and they found something deeply troubling. In the background of dozens of videos Euro casual, easy to miss if you weren't looking to Euro, were signs of Laura's deteriorating mental state that had been there all along. Her smile had become increasingly forced in later videos. Her eyes had lost their light. There were moments where she would pause mid-sentence, as if she had forgotten where she was. In some clips, you could see her hands shaking. In others, her voice would crack slightly before she caught herself and pushed through. The evidence of her suffering had been recorded and broadcast to millions of people, and nobody had intervened. What made it worse was the realization that her audience had watched these signs of distress and turned them into content engagement. Comments on those videos said things like, "Laura seems tired LOL," or "Is she okay?" But they were just observations, casual remarks that scrolled past in the sea of engagement. Nobody had taken real action. Nobody had told her to stop. In fact, the comments that expressed concern probably made her feel more pressure to reassure everyone that she was fine. Investigative creators and journalists began looking deeper into what had happened. They interviewed people close to Laura. They analyzed the timeline of her decline. What emerged was a portrait of a woman systematically destroyed by the mechanics of online celebrity. Not by one catastrophic event, but by 1,000 small pressures that accumulated until they became unbearable. One former friend gave an interview describing Laura's final months before her breakdown. She talked about how Laura would film herself crying, then edit out the tears because it wasn't the right tone for the algorithm. She talked about Laura checking her phone hundreds of times a day, refreshing analytics, reading comments at 3 in the morning. She talked about watching Laura's personality change, becoming more guarded, more performative, less genuinely her. The narrative that emerged online was that Laura had been exploited, not by a company or a manager, but by the system itself, by an algorithm designed to reward emotional vulnerability, by an audience trained to consume personal content as entertainment, by the monetization of authenticity, by a culture that had convinced her that her value was directly tied to her output. But here's what nobody discussed openly. Laura's audience bore some responsibility too. The comments demanding content. The messages expressing disappointment when she didn't post. The parasocial relationships where viewers felt entitled to her time and energy. The pressure to stay relatable by sharing her struggles. The expectation that she remain grateful for her success, no matter the cost. All of it had contributed to her breakdown. Yet the conversation online was mostly about condemning Laura for leaving, not about examining the systems that had broken her. Years have passed since Laura Wilson stepped away from the camera. Laura Family Farms still exists as an Archivia Euro, thousands of videos documenting a life that was both real and performed, both genuine and constructed. New viewers discover it all the time, watching the journey from beginning to end, unaware of the human cost behind every frame. Laura herself has largely disappeared from public view. She rarely posts on social media. She doesn't engage with the creator community anymore. By most accounts, she is trying to rebuild her life away from the spotlight, though what that looks like and whether she has found peace remains mostly unknown. The internet moved on, as it always does, but the questions her story raises have never been fully answered. What happened to Laura Family Farms forced a broader conversation about content creation, mental health, and the ethics of parasocial relationships. But did that conversation actually change anything? Are creators today better protected? Do audiences understand their role in the pressure that creators face? Or are we just repeating the same cycle with new faces? The truth is that Laura's story is not unique. For every creator you see thriving online, there are dozens burning out in silence. The difference is that most of them don't have the visibility or the courage to be honest about their breaking point. They just disappear quietly, replaced by the next creator who hasn't yet learned the lesson that success online comes with a hidden price tag. Laura's children have grown up in a world where their childhood was public property. They have to live with the knowledge that their most intimate family moments were consumed as entertainment by strangers. Some of them may never fully process that trauma. Some may grow up resenting their mother for putting them in that position, even though she was doing what she thought was right at the time. And Laura herself will probably spend the rest of her life wondering what might have happened if she had recognized the warning signs earlier, if she had set boundaries sooner, if she had chosen her family over the algorithm, if she had understood that authenticity cannot be manufactured sustainably without destroying the person manufacturing it. The documentary evidence of her decline is preserved forever online. Future researchers, future creators, future audiences can study what happened to Laura and learn from it. But learning requires honesty. It requires looking at our own role in systems that exploit vulnerability. It requires asking ourselves hard questions about what we consume and why we consume it. Laura Family Farms was supposed to be a story about the simple joy of farm life and family. Instead, it became a cautionary tale about the cost of connection in an age where connection is currency. The farm is still there. The family is still there. But Laura, the person millions of people thought they knew, had to disappear to survive. And that, perhaps, is the most heartbreaking truth of all. Sometimes the only way to save yourself is to abandon the life that everyone else believes you should want.